Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pasta to Go, my new show, guys. Thank you so much for coming on today. The official launch wasn't supposed to be till next week, but we do have a primary today, and it might be the last primary. That's a big question we'll be asking today, so I figured I would just jump right on. My engineer's got something personal going on. All my staff, the guys that are working with me on this show and the girls working with me on the show, all are busy today, but I figured it might be the last primary, so we do a little warm-up, get ourselves rolling. Start next week on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube, Pasta to Go, and Rumble, of course, Pasta to Go. That's the number 2. We want you to share it on out and get the ball rolling for us. So since we're having a little bit of show today, I figured I'd bring on some of my favorite people, and we can talk Hampshire primary, give you a little taste of what's going on in our thoughts. So let me bring them in one by one. We're going to start with my paisan, Don DeBar, a self-described Marxist of sorts, but a foreign policy specialist. Don, how you doing? How's the weather up there in New York?
As they say, co is a mofo. It actually warmed up today to about 38 degrees, I think, Fahrenheit. It's been very cold since last Thursday, Friday, but it's starting to warm up a little.
Well, that's good, man. Thank you so much for joining the show tonight. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. We got a lot of things to talk about. We won't keep you long, but we'll give people a little taste of what's out there. Let's bring in the next person. Mel K, what's going on? Let me take this down first of all, because nobody puts baby in a corner and nobody puts a sign over Mel K. How you doing today, Mel?
I'm doing great. Planet Chaos just continues to not surprise me, but totally keep me on my toes. So whatever we're talking about today, let's go where we go, because there's about a million things we could discuss.
I know. It is crazy. My mom is officially hiding the Sambuca on me. I was looking for it, couldn't find it, but, I got a little rum substitute. It has been crazy out there. I was talking to somebody yesterday who had watched our show together, and they kept asking me, what do we do? What do we do? I said, I don't know, but at least we can start to share information or continue to share information. But there seems to be a lot of newbies or normies or whatever you want to call them that are coming into the fold and are curious about what's going on with the fourth industrial revolution, the Great Reset, and how it plays into tonight's primaries, the candidates that are involved. So I can't wait to hear your point of view and your perspective. I kind of described Don as a self-described Marxist, but you've done a show with him before. I think some people have this kind of damaging thought in their mind about what a Marxist is. But how would you describe yourself, Mel? Because I don't want to say you're of the populist right, because you definitely are an independent thinker in my book.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What I believe is that there is no left and right or Republican, Democrat. I think it's all a farce. I honestly believe that our country is fully captured by the globalist billionaire oligarchy that, I believe are angling for a globalist government. So at this point, I am first and foremost an American citizen that would like to see my country survive what I believe is a controlled demolition of the United States and another attempt at installing an Agenda 2030 global governance system in the, as Kissinger laid out, very similar to a Hunger Games world. And I am not in for that. So right now, I don't care what side you're on. All I know is I'm standing for freedom and liberty, and everything else, that's up to you.
That's great. We're going to have some great conversations tonight. I know you have a past relationship or history with the Trump campaign, so I'm very interested to see where you stand today. But like I said, I look at you as an independent thinker. You're the only one from that clan or whatever you want to say that mentions the NED, and that just warms my heart when we get people understanding who's actually pulling the strings of power. Mel K, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a lot to talk on. But let me bring in my final guest really quickly. You might know her as my sushi partner, but I've also had a chance to host her show here and there. She's been a great inspiration for me, gives me a lot of advice. I love her show. I love what she does. I think she was a leader of the, once again, not putting people in a certain description, but the leftists who were able to talk about the COVID-19 and the protocols while she was on the Hill. I was so proud of her work and what she was doing. However, her audience even said that I'm more left than her, but we'll let her come on the show today and say what she's got to say. Ladies and gentlemen, Kim Iverson's here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm pretty sure I'm more left than you. But actually, I don't know. I don't know. I don't care anymore. You win. You win. These days, I don't know. Is it a badge? Is it?
Well, it's kind of interesting because when me and Don talk about leftism, we're talking about a certain type of leftism. That's not the leftism that is known today in the United States. What's happened with this culture war cabal of sorts that have taken over our politics. I mean, the Democratic Party is just, who knows where they're at and where their mindset is. I think on your show yesterday, you were even saying that it seems like the conservatives or the Republicans stand for more than truth and freedom than the Democrats do. When I was a Democrat, it was all about freedom of speech, freedom of a press. We were pro Julian Assange. We were anti-interventionist. But now that's all thrown out the window as if almost every Democrat in office is for still funding the Ukraine-Russia war.
And more. I mean, now they're behind Nikki Haley.
Ugh.
I know. Well, listen, let's start off the show with that. Let's get your opinions. Where is the state of the Democratic Party where they're supporting people like Nikki Haley? I heard somebody at a CNN event, a Nikki Haley event, say yesterday that they're supporting Nikki Haley, and if Trump is the nomination, they're going to go vote for Biden again. And their number one reason was the Ukraine war. Go ahead.
Nikki, the state of the Democratic Party, is that the question, where it's trash?
Yeah.
And the trash is Nikki Haley. I mean, they're supporting Nikki Haley. They think that that's a good choice. They think that Nikki Haley is a better option than Donald Trump. That's how deranged they are, because they have such Trump derangement syndrome that they think somebody who wants to literally create a department of offense. I'm sick of talking about the Department of Defense. I want to talk about the Department of Offense. That is who they think is a better option than Donald Trump, who doesn't want to get us into any more wars just because they don't like his tweets. I mean, it's a level of derangement. It's a level of delusion. I don't even know what to, I mean, it's Democratic parties. And I mean, look, this is a party that says we're fighting for democracy. Meanwhile, they are totally antithetical to democracy, not even wanting to have primary elections. Like tonight, they tried to smear. They did everything they possibly could to halt New Hampshire from having the Democratic primary first. And it got to the point where the New Hampshire Attorney General had to actually issue a cease and desist to the DNC earlier this month to get them to knock off their rhetoric of your vote in New Hampshire doesn't matter. It's meaningless. They said, you're not allowed to say that. Our votes are meaningful. This is a democracy. And you've got the Democratic Party saying, no, it's meaningless. I mean, that's the state of the Democratic Party today.
Can I speak to that?
Go ahead, Donnie, jump right in.
Interesting too, because apparently, allegedly, I mean, and this is from CBS News, so who knows, but there was apparently some spoofing effort, robocall or something with, I don't know if it was Mike McRae, but there was supposedly Joe Biden calling people, telling Democrats don't bother to vote in the primary because your vote won't count anyway. And there was an investigation that was announced by the state, I think by the AG or by someone involved in New Hampshire state, investigating this as a voter suppression illegal device. So it's kind of cool that the whoever was doing that is in complete tandem with the DNC.
Yeah. It looks like it was coming from a super PAC.
Yeah.
That used to be the chair of the Democratic Party in New Hampshire, who now runs a super PAC for the DNC, because it kind of gave a call to her. But I mean, it's possible that it was somebody else that did it. But with the way the DNC has been behaving towards New Hampshire, it would be no surprise if it was somebody behind the DNC or in collusion with the DNC. Voter suppression, it's a crime what they're doing. That was the robocall with Joe Biden saying, it's a bunch of malarkey. Don't vote in New Hampshire. It won't matter. What matters is defeating Donald Trump.
I'm so sorry to step on your toes there, but when I was in New Hampshire for the RFK event, when he was going there and asking the state assembly and the state senators, not me and Don were on that trip together, he was asking them not to change their primary and trying that. That's when he was part of the Democratic Party before he stepped on out. But he was actually pushing them to hold still with their New Hampshire primary. And when New Hampshire was going along with, hey, we're going to stay where we're normally at, the Democratic Party was pushing back against them and threatening to sanction them of sorts if they weren't going to go along and play by the rules that the DNC was trying to create. Mel, let's go to you. I'm not to say that you are a Republican, but what is the state of the Republican Party, especially after today? In other words, if Trump wins and Trump wins big, is this primary over?
I already think it's over personally. It is not, in my opinion, like I said, I can't look at either party. I feel like they're both completely captured by the globalist, multinational corporations and the international banking cartel. I don't think the government in Washington, D.C., or many local or state governments are running in any way as intended by our founders. I don't think that the Constitution or the Bill of Rights is of concern. And as we've had shows on it before, I believe that the most powerful people in our country are about like Larry Fink and Jamie Dimon and all these NGOs. And really, I feel like we're fighting a battle against each other that doesn't really exist, just to kind of go through the motions. Like, I always harken back to Carol Quigley's book, Tragedy and Hope. And I say, look, he told us exactly what we're dealing with here. And frankly, I'm at a point where I don't even want to play the game anymore. I feel like we're dealing with a nation that we, the people, are no longer not even just heard, but not even considered when either side is doing anything. And if nothing else, I think that this, between the open border, the controlled demolition of our economy, and most important, the push towards an escalation of World War III and nuclear war, is where most people should probably meet left of center, right of center, and just have had enough with the entire system divided into two parties that are totally fraudulent.
So you're with three leftists, or whatever you want to call us, that understand and see existential threats. We all do. We have a close relationship with each other. I think a lot of us here, Don, Kim, and myself, have been demonized for talking about the Great Reset or the Fourth Industrial Revolution. What is your solution? You did mention something there about excusing somewhat of the parties. What is your solution for we the people moving forward? And more importantly, how do different clans or different ideologies, because we have such a football mentality in this country, right? This team or that team. How do we break that divide and bring people together?
Well, first and foremost, I think that we have to really go inside. People have forgotten what they think. This echo chamber that is X and some of the other platforms, but X especially. I believe that we're under attack and we're in a cognitive war. And for me, that I go right to the NATO documents more than anything else to look at what's going on. I think they're using our minds as weapons, and they have really to where they are now. And it's in their own documents, be it NASA or NATO or even any of our government agencies. They have the ability to make us kind of scrambled in the mind and not be able to think or see or use critical thinking. And that's why I shut off a lot of that stuff. I try to find people. I watch all of you, but I watch people on all sides and try to decipher, especially international journalists, when there's certain facts that are across the board and not being spun and they can't be spun. That's kind of where I go. But for me, as you know, I have a book coming out that I kind of based on how do we find a middle, and I based it on it's called Americans Anonymous, and I based it on AA and that 12-step program, because I feel like America has hit rock bottom, and we all have to go into the room together, leave our egos outside, come in with humility, and say, listen, our country has been captured, and we're all. Well, when you go into AA, your first thing is that there's a problem. The second thing is the problem is you. And that's what I think. I think this is about individual responsibility and citizens looking at this country as if it's personal, because it is. And that's the biggest problem, I think.
Kim, you were shaking your head. Yes, there, no, there, kind of like, making some notions, also answering the question too, because I think there's a lot, because people said to me, all right, Pasta, you're an election integrity activist. You even feel that in New Hampshire, and you've done work there before, that there's a lot of fugaziness when it comes to our election systems across the board, especially witnessing elections in Latin America that are fair, free, transparent, have a chain of custody in the purview of the public where it's very hard to cheat. In other words, everything takes place in front of us, the public, and we can see what's going on. What does this primary mean then? Because I think that the reason why I wanted to bring you all on is not so much to talk about the candidates and the primary process, but talk about what the voters, even if they don't vote, the citizens, what's in their mind. And we're going to talk a little bit about foreign policy. We're going to talk about the border crisis. But does this election mean anything? This primary mean anything? Kind of piggybacking on what Mel K just said over there too as well, because it really, a lot of people feel it's over before it even started. But what are your thoughts on tonight? Does it really have any meaning, the primary itself tonight?
I think it does. I don't think Nikki Haley's going to bow out after this. I think she's going to go on. The next one is Nevada for the Republicans, and then on to South Carolina. And I think that she believes that she has a real shot. And if you actually look at the numbers, her trajectory's only gone in a linear graph up as far as her approval ratings, or people, not even approval ratings, but just likely voters. It's been on an upward trajectory, whereas Donald Trump is kind of up and down, up and down. The results are mercurial, just like Donald Trump is, and hers are really linear. And so I think she's thinking that what worked for Joe Biden in 2020 is going to work for her in 2024, which is it's okay to lose a few, but then you start winning, and then you win and you win and you win. And I think that's what she's thinking is going to happen. She did so far get 100% of the votes in New Hampshire. Of course, it was 6 votes, but she did get 100% of them. Which makes me very depressed that America is so deranged about Trump that they would prefer just a warmonger. I mean, she's the biggest warmonger I think we've ever seen. And there are a lot of warmongers out there to compare her to, but the thing about her is I don't think she ever talks about domestic policy. At least with other warmongers, they at least bring up domestic policy. She seems to just say, what about our friends? We got to do something about our friends. A win for Russia is a win for China. We got to go hard on China. We got to go hard on, we got to go hard on Iran. We got to, she on and on and on. I feel like she talks foreign policy nonstop. And I don't think she's just going to march us into World War III, but to World War IV and World War V if she's in charge. She's a very frightening person. But I don't think it's over. I think she's going to perform well tonight. That's what I think. I think she'll lose. I think she'll get second place to Donald Trump, but I think it won't be as far off as it was in Iowa. And I think her team will see that as a win. And there's 50 states plus DC, right? So they've got and Virgin Islands, they've got all these. So they have a lot of primaries to get through. I think Nikki Haley's calculation is if they lose the first 5 or 6, that's fine. They just need to win the rest. And they wouldn't be wrong in that. And that's frightening.
Don, go ahead. Your thoughts.
So a little history, because you can kind of look. We seriously have some problems. Obviously, I think we all agree, and of an existential nature when we're talking about World War III and IV and beyond, because we are talking about those things. In 1968, at the then height of the Vietnam War, Eugene McCarthy, who was a senator, U.S. senator, threw his hat into the ring. The first primary that year was, as was traditional in New Hampshire. It took place on March 12th, that they've been moving back ever since. Eugene McCarthy was the only Democrat on the ballot for the Democratic primary. Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was the sitting president, did not enter the primary. They did an all-out campaign in the same way that we're seeing now for Biden with the write-in campaign. And LBJ got between 48 and 50% of the vote, and McCarthy 42% against the sitting president. That was on March 12th. By March 31st, LBJ announced that he was not going to run for re-election. March 17th, Robert F. Kennedy Sr., seeing how Gene McCarthy had done, he was a nobody to most people in the country, certainly to people in New Hampshire. RFK decided he would run, and that was what put LBJ over. We saw this year, you and I were in New Hampshire, back in June, and I saw even back in April at the kickoff in Boston. In New Hampshire is, in essence, part of Massachusetts politically. And Kennedy's family, we heard him say when he was speaking to the Senate, they summered it all over New Hampshire. He was, in essence, a favorite son for an election there. New Hampshire requires a type of campaigning that goes on there. If you watch the local television, the candidates go to people's houses and have dinner with them. They go to the barber shop and the beauty parlor, to the diner, to all of these, upfront and personal style campaign stops all over the state for a month or more before the primary takes place. This is not something that Joe Biden could do. Okay, he can't spend the afternoon at the barbershop without everyone there taking inventory of everything that he does on camera. And so at the very beginning, when they saw the position that they were in, they were starting to maneuver about trying to get South Carolina, where they felt he would be strong as the first primary. And then Bobby Kennedy announced in April, I think it was the 17th or 19th, that he was going to be a candidate. Then suddenly you're looking at Bobby Kennedy, who knows people. When we saw him walking around the state house in New Hampshire, he knew everybody first name basis, and they knew him walking around campaigning, going hiking with them and sitting in the diner drinking beer or whatever. Biden made it, look, we can't allow this to happen. And so they went all out for this. Now, the only reason I'm reciting all of it, and by the way, Johnson pulled out, but they killed Bobby Kennedy Sr. In June. By the time he had gotten momentum, he had just won the California primary, and it looked like he was going to be the Democratic nominee, and he was shot and killed. By the convention, the entire process was so obviously rigged that you had people in the streets, in essence, a riot for the entire 4 days of the Democratic National Convention in 1968. And so, things were difficult then. There were uprisings in the cities, and there was the war in Vietnam and a lot of other things going on. But what we're looking at now is that stuff on like another order of magnitude. And back then, there were crises of legitimacy for various contact points with the institutions. Now, the institutions here have been thoroughly discredited in front of almost the entire electorate. No matter who wins the election, whoever the half of the electorate that voted for the other candidate is going to believe that it was stolen. In each case, that they're going to think the election was rigged because they're both right. It's going to be rigged, whatever the outcome is. And so while we walk into 1968 redux, we're doing it on quicksand and with carrying, I don't know, nuclear explosives in our pockets or something. That's what we're watching the beginning of now.
Really quick question before we get to the next subject. If Trump does win big today, is it over?
Well, it's not going to be over. They're not going to give him a cakewalk. I think I agree that I think Kim said it, or I don't, maybe Mel said it, maybe they both said it. It's already over as far as that goes. A free and fair election, with or without 38 million indictments and litigation over ballot spots and all that stuff. The Republican electorate wants Trump, and so do a lot of independents and even some Democrats. And this is a secret maybe to some people, but a lot of black Democrats in the cities want Trump. You're going to see this again in places like Philadelphia and other places, Detroit, where when Trump won those states, it was because a good part of the vote stayed home, knowing what the effect would be, and some went out and actually voted and just said, so he would win it. It's over already if it's an honest fight, but it's not. This is a struggle for power. Yeah. Okay, this isn't an election. It's almost an existential struggle for power for people who have been sitting on top of the power structure for, let's say, the last 30, 40, 50 years as a group.
Good points. We got about 15 minutes left before some of you have to get out of there. You can see I have it down on the bottom that foreign policy is not the biggest concern for Republican voters. However, it has increased as far as when you take polls over the previous years, foreign policy on both sides of the aisle. I don't even think the Democrats even care. But the border crisis is at the top of the list for Republican voters. I'm going to start off with Kim, and then I'm going to move to Mel, and then on to Don. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because Kim, you said this on your show yesterday, and you talked about this. We understand that the border crisis, and I'd love to talk about this because everybody has a lot of knowledge on this show right here. In fact, when you were on the Jimmy Dore show with me, we talked about the border and all about closing the border as opposed to closing the bases and what the NED is doing down there.
But remember, my opinion was not popular that day. Everybody eviscerated me in the comments.
Well, neither was mine. Neither was mine because, once again, I say you can't close the border until you close the bases. Mel talks about the NED. She knows about it. Don, you've been talking about the NED before I was even born. Not to kind of like expose your age there, but you've been talking about this existential threat for quite some time. Kim, you did mention the border, not popular there as well, but you said you wished there was this kind of like connect. And I don't understand why. And I don't know how to get across to a lot of the populist right. about how our foreign policy is so connected to the border crisis. Let me say something to all the populist right people who are watching out there today that think that closing the border is going to be the solution. It's not. People will get into the country no matter what. The problem is what we do in these countries where we have almost 100 bases now in Latin America. It is an occupation. It's all about keeping these countries destabilized so we can extract the resources for pennies on the dollar, throw our monetary system on there with incredible, ridiculous loans from the IMF, and therefore we control them. Why don't you give us your opinion as far as the Republicans are concerned that are voting tonight, the border crisis and foreign policy, how to connect the two and how to get this across to the populist right so they understand that the border is just only one part of the equation.
I mean, obviously, we see that the border has, with all immigration, even across the globe, foreign policy has a lot to do with that. I don't know how Europe hasn't turned on us yet, because they're the ones who've absorbed the majority of the people from the Middle East, from Ukraine. It's been on their shoulders to bear the brunt of all of these people that are fleeing from conflict that we create or that we instigate, right? So Europe, I think, is really at the, but we're also seeing at the border, the southern border, it's not just historically had been a lot of, it is still majority Hispanic people crossing through the border, the southern border from Latin America and Central America. But we are seeing this influx from other areas of the world. And it's very kind of befuddling. Like, how do people from Africa get all the way over to the southern border and then they cross through the southern border? So there's clearly a problem there. But obviously, you know, when we are destabilizing countries, or not even just through war, through foreign policy, but also economic policy, when we sanction countries, when we siphon their resources, when we topple their leaders, when we stage coups, and it creates instability. And that's been a U.S. foreign policy sort of ethos for a really long time, which is keep places destabilized, because if you keep them destabilized, they won't rise up and become powerful. And when they become powerful, then they can rival you. I mean, that's what we see with Russia and China, is that they're powerful, China in particular, and they give us a run for our money. I mean, they're competitive with us. So people don't like that. They don't like the competition. They like to remain the number one power. They want to be on top. So, you know, we've had this, and that's what we've seen throughout the Middle East. It's been a destabilization effort in order to keep certain players from rising up and actually challenging the status quo of whoever we think should be in power in the Middle East. So that destabilizing effort, of course, is going to cause people to flood through the border. I mean, look, my particular stance on it is, the first thing, and this is what I said on Jimmy Dore's show that was not popular, so it's probably not going to be popular again, is, okay, I get it that there's a lot of people coming through the border and they shouldn't be coming through an illegal process. We, however, have the worst Congress on the face of the planet. I mean, I don't know if it's on the face of the planet, but it's really bad. It's definitely the most ineffective branch of government in this country. They just are useless, completely useless. So they haven't changed immigration policy in decades, really, effectively. So people are going to just skirt the laws because the laws are antiquated. They're not up to date. They're not modernized, and nobody gives a shit. I mean, honestly. So the first things first is that obviously they need to fix the laws. But besides that, besides the fact that it's illegal, I think we have to ask the question of, why do we not want these people here? And that's the only thing I said on Jimmy Dore's show, is you just have to show me that their presence here is a negative thing. I'm willing to assert that it is. I mean, if it is a bad thing, and if you could say, well, it leads to lower wage, like we can actually not just think it leads to lower wages, but we can actually prove that their presence leads to lower wages, that their presence leads to problems in this country that are legitimate, not just one-offs, like, oh, this guy killed somebody and he was an illegal, so therefore they should all go. You have to show me that there's a genuine economic, social, cultural problem that is being developed in the United States because of these people, directly with data. I don't want to hear bullshit of like, I think so. No, I want data. And then if you could prove that it's a real problem, then we need to correct that problem. But there's a chance it's not. And that's something that people need to kind of contend with, is that there is actually a possibility that the presence of all these people builds our country. And it goes against the narrative of all these foreigners are here and it's a white replacement project, and suddenly people aren't going to be white or whatever, and our culture is going to be different. I don't believe that Latinos, Hispanics that come to this country change our culture. I think they integrate quite well. I think they turn into Marco Rubios of the world and Ted Cruz's of the world. I think they're quite conservative, and I think they're just like a lot of conservative Americans, in fact, especially if conservatives embrace them. I think that they work hard. I think they're family oriented. They're religious. I think that they're very aligned, actually, socially and culturally, with the vast majority of Americans. But so I think that there needs to be a real, true data-driven analysis of, is it bad that these people are here? If it turns out against a lot of popular thinking that they're actually a positive presence in the United States, then we need to pressure Congress to change the laws. Then it wouldn't be illegal anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well,
I could go
yeah.
away. If you could show me the data either way. If it turns
Yeah.
out that their presence is horrible, fine.
Yeah.
Then let's fix it. If it turns out their
Well,
presence is positive, then fix it.
we're going to let Mel jump in here because I think Mel has some things to say. But Mel, you were shaking your head no when Kim was stating, and I do have the data behind this, that the majority of the people are still coming from Latin America. At the height of the summer, when RFK made his movie, and he was trying to show that people were coming in from Africa, from other Asians, we still looked at the numbers, and we looked at the U.S. Customs borders securities. In other words, the people who were at the border, 85% were still coming from Latin America. Now, to Kim's point, the fact that, I agree with her 100% because I've lived in California. The majority of people are coming because they're coming to work and send money home. What's the argument against that? Tackle that first too as well, because I don't think the majority of them are a threat. Yeah, they'd have these one-offs of this illegal immigrant was drunk and he killed some people and whatnot, and we understand that's really sad and tragic, but it's not the majority of the immigrants who are coming. Nonetheless, what is your point of view when it comes to this situation? Because I know this is a hot topic that we're talking about. I still digress to the point is they're here because we're there, and that's my biggest argument. But give us your thoughts on the whole topic itself, Mel.
Well, I mean, obviously, wherever you and Kim get your data from is different from where I get my data from, which is fine, where we deal with different people. I've been dealing with Todd Bensman and other people that are down at the border. Michael Yon and Ann were just down in Panama for weeks and weeks. What really is happening is a lot of people are coming through Panama and coming through Venezuela and then coming here. The amount of people from Africa, and these numbers have been out there. I don't know. You'll have to send me what you're getting, Pasta, because that's not what I'm getting. Also, there are a lot of getaways and other things. And what you're talking about is one aspect of it. And of course, I lived in California for 20 years. But again, if it's not bothering you, that's fine. But I lived in Manhattan. I just left Manhattan. Manhattan is teeming with people from all over the world, all over town. It is, if you go there in person, you will see that it is affecting life in New York City dramatically, as far as I'm concerned. On top of that, the other thing that is not being talked about is there are 300,000 children that are not being looked after they cross that border. We don't know where they are. Another thing that's happening, I don't know. For me, I look at it more like the Cloward Piven strategy and what is happening in our hospitals, in our schools, in our social services. A lot of this money is being diverted, but my take is very different. And I don't know what right-wing populists you're listening to. I don't know who they are, but what I believe is that this isn't about any of this. I honestly still believe that we are talking about Agenda 2030. We're talking about the destabilization of now this country. What you guys are saying about what and I'm curious who we are when you and Kim both say we are, because I see a different we that has captured our entire country and many other nations. I see them as something that is running as a global parent company of planet Earth at the moment. The multinational corporations in bed with the banking cartel, I feel like, have infiltrated all of our nations. But things like the Treaty of North America, things like a lot of the things the Trilateral Commission has been behind, a lot of things the Open Society has been behind, a lot of the money that is going to pay for the border is coming straight through U.S. taxpayer dollars, and a lot of it through the UN, which we happen to fund. And frankly, I think America is in the middle of a color revolution, as we have orchestrated all over the world. You and I have done whole shows on it, Pasta, about CIA, National Endowment of Democracy, taking down duly elected governments, including Ukraine and Libya and all over the world. I feel like that's happening to us right now. So when I look at this whole thing, I think they're using the illegals as weapons against us. And when people are telling me and sending me information that the same people who funded Black Lives Matter and all these other uprisings are planning already and recruiting people within these communities to have an uprising in February and March with a hashtag demand citizenship, I believe it, because I think that the powers that be that see America as the problem to getting global governance and the one world governance that they have on all their Agenda 2030s see America as a problem. And if America is destroyed from within and we're fighting each other, we don't stand up for this nation, we don't understand what's going on, well, it's very easy to turn us into Venezuela. And I'll just finish on this. Not too long ago, I was in New York City and I live near the UN, as you know, and I was sitting at a restaurant. Right next to me was a bunch of guys that just came down from the IMF meeting. I think the we is the global public-private partnership. Many of them are the billionaires in America. And these three guys are sitting next to me. I obviously know they're from the IMF meeting, so I'm eavesdropping on them. And then they started talking to me, and I go, "Oh, are you guys meeting to discuss turning America into Venezuela?" And the guy laughed, and he goes, "It's going to be much worse than Venezuela in America. You guys better get ready." And I believe that he meant it. So when we're talking about I believe that we have been usurped by a power that's running above our government, and that's the enemy to me.
Well, I will say this much, that I'm going to Venezuela this year to look at their elections. And from what I heard about their elections, are some of the best elections out there. And Venezuela does have a problem because of what? U.S. sanctions and blockades and whatnot. Now, I'm going to let Don jump in here and give his opinion.
Is it
What's
U.S.? Is it the U.S. that is doing that, or is it the IMF and the globalist partnership?
It is the U.S. Donald Trump tried to have Maduro killed. He tried to whack him. In U.S. policy, the government itself.
Are you talking about the loans?
Everybody in the Congress stood up and applauded Juan Guaido. Let's not ignore that over there. They are all for regime change. They are trying to suffocate Venezuela. It is the United States government, maybe behind the scenes, the IMF, the NED, but the United States government, Democrat and Republican, stood up and applauded Juan Guaido, who was not the choice of the Venezuelan people. Nicolas Maduro was. Let Don jump in here really quickly, and let's get his opinion about what Mel just said.
I don't have an opinion about this within the framework that is being discussed. I see this much differently. Start from the fact that you have two areas you have to focus on. One, everyone we're talking about is a human being. So, that gets lost in the sauce. However, being a human being doesn't just mean that you're entitled to all the things that we are all entitled to: food, clothing, shelter, etc. And it also entails certain responsibilities. It also entails certain rights where you are. The thing that initiates the movement of people here, first of all, generally, is either the fact that the U.S. government or some other puppetry of the U.S. government, and let me be even more clear, the people that make policy and control the U.S. government, the places that they target their bombs and their coups d'etat and their foreign policy and their global economic policy creates refugees. People don't generally leave their home and their family to travel thousands of miles away unless there is no other viable alternative for them to survive. And so that's at the head end of this. The people in the Congress and the president and the bureaucracy in corporate America and the DNC and the RNC and everywhere else who seem paralyzed in terms of dealing with the human cost, both to the people who are refugees and to the communities who are already starving, that they have to now share their crumbs with in order for people to not die in the street. There's some people that are making a big profit in terms of money and power over this condition. They are making the policy that creates the motion, that drives people into motion and puts them at the border. And they're making the policy that allows the gates to open and close at the apparent whim of the bureaucracy. So we're paralyzed in terms of making policy. That's a crock of shit. What we're looking at is the result of policy. So then we have to, because, okay, what are some of the impacts? The obvious impacts are at the place where the people are being driven from, the wages are depressed there because you have dictatorships that basically dictate how much people will get paid, and an economy that generally results in You dig out the wealth under the ground here and take it to the ship so we can send it back to America and shut up. That's in essence the life for the people that don't flee from these places. That stuff comes here. Some people coming here are just following their stuff here. The wealth that used to exist in their country is dragged here, and they're hoping for some trickle down when they get here. That is part of the dynamic also. Then when they get here, the arrival of another 100,000 or 1 million or 5 million workers in a labor market already with depressed wages and few opportunities, that problem is now exacerbated. It has nothing to do with the character or nature or habits or language or whatever, dietary habits, nothing to do with the character traits of the people who are arriving. It's the nature of things. If I've got 10 jobs and 100 people, 90 people are shit out of luck. And the 10 that work are going to work and shut up so they don't end up part of the 90. This all benefits the same group of people. They make money on the weapons. They gain control of the natural resources in these countries. They gain stronger control. Remember, unions used to be powerful in this country. How do you think they were driven to the state that they are now? Mechanization is part of it. But there are so many jobs here where there's no mechanization and the wages are half or even worse of what they were even 20 years ago. Again, it's not the fault of the people that got here. They're victims of the same people that we're victims of as workers here. And so we have to look at this in a holistic way. And if we're going to solve it, we got to understand who the enemy is. And that's what we have to deal with. This political process ain't going to do shit for us.
Yeah, and I think we all agree on that. Mel, I know that's where we do agree. It's the same people causing the problems. Ladies, do either one of you want to jump in and say anything about this right now? Because this is just an intriguing conversation, and this is an important conversation. You're not going to get these conversations on CNN, MSNBC, or Fox, right? They just want to pit people against each other. And, I don't mean to push it off. And I try to explain this to a lot of my leftist friends or whatever you want, my progressive friends of the past, that a lot of people within this country who want a border wall, who want security here, they just feel that they want to take care of their citizens first because they believe the system is so overloaded that we don't have room to take care of anybody else. It's just like a mother in a village that's starving, and if she found food, I'm pretty sure that mother's going to feed her kids first before she gives the food to the rest of the villagers. Ladies, do either one of you want to jump in?
Can I just say something first?
Go ahead.
As you build that wall to protect the people here, supposedly, you are walling in those people whose countries we're bombing. We are putting them in Gaza.
Mel, Kim?
Kim can go.
No, I don't have anything really more to say.
Well, what I was going to say is this is we really do have to identify what is actually going on in this country. I still think we, the people, do have a lot of ability to make things change. But as far as Washington, D.C., I believe that 10 by 10, cesspool is unsalvageable, in my opinion. I don't know what the answer is to that, but I do know that whoever ends up being the president really needs to gut a lot of what is going on in Washington, D.C. Frankly, I believe that the lobbying should be criminal. I think it should be totally illegal. I don't think these PACs should happen. I think Citizens United should be reversed. I don't think that there should be, if there are think tanks, they should be self-funding and totally transparent on who's funding them. And these NGOs should get no money from the government and no grants and no taxpayer dollars. Those entities, I believe, have far more power than any single sitting person in our government, all the way up to the president right now. And frankly, my whole idea is I agree a lot with what Kim and Don are saying. I just disagree with who they are. I believe that there has been when Larry Fink, before 6 months before COVID, and we're watching TV screens with people walking down the street in China dropping dead, which never happened. Obviously, it was propaganda to turn us into like feared and panicked people. But when Larry Fink made his speech about going direct to the people and using the multinational corporations and the public-private partnerships and the international banks to go at the people, I think he really meant that. And at this point, I really do believe that there is a supranational group of people that have usurped many, many nations, including our own. And I believe that they are the problem. And when we're talking about benefiting from natural resources and all of that, you just look at this natural asset company BS that they want to put out there, and you connect these companies, because these companies that we think are American companies are not American companies, they're global companies. And I honestly think Larry Fink at BlackRock has more power than the president of the United States right now, and that shouldn't be. So I just look more at the corporations and the banks than I do at our government when I look at what's really going on here and largely around the world.
We're taking a quick look at New Hampshire over there. The Trump's room is ready to erupt. They're packed on in. You can see what's going on. Results have been trickling in, but we haven't gotten any yet. You can see the Nikki Haley campaign down below. Kim, I was expecting you to be off by now, and I had another guest to come replace you. But we'll bring him in right now.
I can leave. I can leave. That's fine. Bump me out.
No, I don't want to bump you out, but I definitely had Matt Weinglass here at 7 o'clock ready to kind of get on
then
in
let
there.
him in.
Matt's been doing some
I gotta go.
work.
It's fine. I'll go.
All
I
right.
got things.
Well, then let everybody know where they can find you. I know everybody's laughing there. Kim is
I'm
just
getting
exiting
bumped.
stage left. She got bumped.
I'm getting bumped. That's
Kim,
all right.
thank you so much for joining us. Let everybody know you have a new time for your show. Let everybody know about that. And thank you so much. And just give us your final prediction of tonight.
Okay, well, my new show, well, it's the same show. I just moved it from 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, all the way. I did a big shift to 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and I just started that yesterday. So I'm now a morning person, basically, suddenly. So that's why I've got to go, because I'm tired and I got to take a nap. So that's what's going on. That's on Rumble. That's exclusive on Rumble. I do post clips on YouTube, but the whole show Monday through Friday is on Rumble. And my prediction for tonight is that Nikki Haley performs better than we want her to perform, sadly. And I think that Joe Biden, who's not on the ballot, he's going to be the write-in candidate. I think that'll be interesting. I think that Dean Phillips will probably perform well. We'll see how Dean and Marianne do, because they're the only two candidates on the Democratic ticket, except, people are trying to get the write-ins for Joe Biden. So we'll see what happens. I hope Joe Biden loses, and I hope Nikki Haley loses. I think if Nikki Haley gets any momentum tonight at all, it's a giant loss for all of Americans. I don't think Joe Biden's going to be the nominee in the end anyway. I think they're going to do a 1968, and they're going to usher in their own candidate, and they're going to right at the convention, and they're going to do a vote at the convention with the delegates and say, "Oh, we got a new person. Sorry about that. No primaries." That's what I think they're going to do. So I don't think the Democratic ticket mattered. I think that they wanted Gavin Newsom. I don't know if they're sold on him after his debate with Ron DeSantis. So I think they wanted Kamala Harris, and then they were like pivoting to Pete Buttigieg, and then they're pivoting to Gavin Newsom, and now they're like, oh no, what do we do? But I do think they're gonna replace Joe Biden. I think they might even replace him with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I think that's a possibility. I think they might usher him back into the fold.
Look at that. Kim Iverson, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Remember that I am more left than you, and we will have a great time. Next time I get out there, we'll go get some kampachi, some whitefish, some scallop, and have a great old time. Girls' night when I get out there. Me and you, girl.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So we have, from the homeless left, Matt Weinglass is here. He has arrived, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't seen his work, please go to the homeless left. He just recently went to Hawaii. I wanted to use you to pivot to Israel and Gaza because, a lot of people will claim it's an ethnic cleansing. It's a genocide. At the end of the day, it definitely seems like a land grab. And what we witnessed in Hawaii, we both agree upon, is also a land grab. It's of a different kind. I didn't spend a lot of time, and I don't think you spent a lot of time too as well, trying to discuss what would cause this fire, right? Because we can get lost in the sauce when it comes to that one. Direct energy weapons, space laser, geoengineering. There are so many things people talk about, but we both discovered that it was decades in the making which set the table for Lahaina to be a tinderbox of sorts. What were your final findings there when it came to Hawaii? And then we'll pivot back to the primary. And welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Craig. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to have officially bumped Kim Iverson off your show.
There you go. Yeah.
But thanks for being on with the Homeless Left the other day too. And I want to, I'll give you a summary, and I want everyone, your fans, to listen to what we have meticulously gone through, and we're going to be giving you guys more information as we go. But right now, and the important thing about going out there to Lahaina was we wanted to see for ourselves, and those questions that had been asked that there were no answers to, we wanted to go get those answers for ourselves. So if I could give you just a little bit of a takeaway from our trip, and we're going to go back there again as you're going out there and doing some great work as well. We're going to, we've been piggybacking off each other. We're going to go get some more questions answered. But for now, I have to say one of the biggest takeaways is, the first question about the children and the numbers of deaths, that had been fluctuating, and we wanted to get really into the mix there and figure out what was going on there. And I can report some good news is that most of the children are accounted for, and that's the great news that we're able to check that box. However, the death count does continue to fluctuate up and down, and they're being very vague and not transparent all about those numbers. So I would say that. But now the other really, really big takeaway here, besides all the botched responses and the alarms not going off and all the things that we knew right away on the day after, just being there and talking to the people on the ground, talking to the residents, people that lost everything, it's absolutely 100% in agreement. Everybody agrees that there is definitely a land grab going on. Whether it's something that was pre-planned or whether it's an opportunity that the people in power are taking right now, that's to be debated, but we absolutely see so many signs of the land grab happening. And then the biggest part of that is that because we have 120,000 people that are at risk to so much of the toxicity from the synthetics, the homes and the furniture that have this very contaminated stuff coming out of it. And we've seen this before back with 9/11. We've seen people suffering from health problems long after the devastation. And so we're seeing those type of things that data is being suppressed as well. So those are two big takeaways we have so far.
Thank you so much for reporting on that. Somebody said to me, oh, that's your competition when it comes to reporting on Lahaina on the left. I said, it's not a competition. It takes a village. We need more people to get out there and get this story so it doesn't die. So I commend you, and I'm thankful that you're going out there as well and reporting on that. Guys, I just want to show you really quickly some of the news that's coming in real quick. Sorry, let me put it over here. I want to get the right one. Where is it at? How am I having such a hard time with this? Hold on, here it is. Boom, the New Hampshire primary results are coming on in. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, and I knew they were going to do this. This is what they do. This is what the mainstream media does. They report favorable numbers first. They got a couple small precincts where they knew Nikki Haley was going to have a nice little small lead, and that's where they got it right now. As they change right before your very own eyes, you can see that edge kind of closing. Right now, Nikki Haley has a 50.9% lead over 48.4. 2% of the votes are in. It's just a small amount, but watch for that to change all day. I think that today Donald Trump is going to have a big win as the night goes along, but that's so far the early numbers that have been reporting, and we will keep an eye on that. All right, so here's my next question, and we're going to start with Don first because, Don, you have some history when it comes to this. You work closely with Cynthia McKinney. I know her very well. I consider her to be the last of the Mohicans, the last great congresswoman who really stood up. She stood up for the people in New Orleans after Katrina. That's why I was so intrigued, and I said I had to go to Lahaina because everybody wanted to close up this story and just go home. When Cynthia McKinney was in office, she was fighting for the people who were getting gentrified and thrown out of their houses in Katrina while the main media just packed up and went home. Cynthia McKinney also has a lot of experience when it comes to elections. I talk about elections all the time. I have a question down there. If the election system hasn't changed, can we expect different results, especially since some of those rules that were changed in the last election, which were considered to be unconstitutional? In other words, only the state legislation can change some of the rules, not election officials, not secretaries of states. However, they use the disguise or the hidden guise of COVID to say we need to mass mail out ballots. Well, some of those rules that they had during COVID, like in states like Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, and certain places, they've now been made not only temporary, been made into law. They are now the existing law. Arizona shotguns out ballots to about 90% of the eligible voters a month before the election. If we haven't changed this, can we expect different results?
Well, I remember I've shared this with you, and you probably saw it before that anyway. Jerry Nadler from New York, who was on the House Judiciary Committee for a long time, talking about paper ballots after during the 2004 election season, or after the 2004 election, actually. I don't know if people remember, it was very close. George Bush, John Kerry. John Kerry referring back to the 2000 election that Democrats all said was stolen from Al Gore by George Bush, swore up and down that this time I'm not going to allow it to be stolen. I'll have 95 lawyers that are working on this and make sure, et cetera. Anyway, before the night was over, and I think before the polls closed, he conceded Ohio, which was in essence conceding the election. And then people brought challenges about what had happened in Ohio. And there was an awful lot of stuff that did go on in Ohio in 2004. There were challenges, on January 6th, 2005, like there were challenges January 6th of 2017, and challenges like there were January 6th of 2021. All based on various allegations. And you referenced Cynthia McKinney, of course. There's a film you can see on YouTube called American Blackout that describes some of the many ways that elections are stolen in the United States. You have machines whose operating systems are proprietary, whose software is proprietary. You can't look at it. You have no idea once people pull levers what happens before it gives an output and how that output is related to what levers were pulled. You have paper ballots that Nadler had said, and this is where I was going before, that people were advocating for as a solution to the problem, which are exactly what we saw exploding in terms of usage for the 2020 election in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and Nevada, decisively changing the outcome of the election because these ballots were counted after everything else was counted in each of those states. Nadler said that I could tell you nightmare stories that paper ballots invite fraud, invite it. So, if they're going to ritualize this, then they're ritualizing fraud. But as you'll see in American Blackout, and then there's Mark Crispin Miller, who's written books about this, and others. There are ways that the Democrats use to manipulate, to game the system, in essence, to steal elections. There are ways that the Republicans do it. We like to suppress vote in the Black community. We like paper ballots, a whole bunch of other things that are used. Crossover primaries where, people are not allowed really to select their own candidate because the state allows just about anyone to come in, whether they're a member of your party or not, to vote for your candidate. This is how Cynthia McKinney was turned out, for example, out of Georgia when she was a member of Congress in the House of Representatives from Georgia. There's a variety of ways to steal these elections. And then again, I'll go back to this. Why are they doing it? We're talking about power, the power to make policy, the power to have the levers of military and intelligence power, the Pentagon and Langley, for example. We're not fighting over trivial things here. We're fighting over control of the most powerful military and economic and intelligence and information systems in the history of the planet. And this is the device by which at least the formal trappings of it are passed. These are the things that lend a modicum of credibility to the holding of these various elements of power in a particular set of hands. I won the election, therefore I'm the commander in chief. Therefore, if I say we go blow this up or that up, that's what we do. I won this election. I'm a member of Congress. We voted on this, and we gave him a war powers resolution. That's how our Constitution works. sit down and shut up because we have this alien and sedition and all kinds of other acts that we can use to shut you down if you open your mouth.
Yeah.
They're fighting over power. Yeah, they'll rig the game.
Yeah.
And
Don, what it does too is also controls the narrative. When a lot of people go, oh, I guess I felt a different way. This is what the citizens want, so I got to accept it. So it's more than just putting somebody in power. It controls the whole narrative of what's being said and what's being thought when it comes to foreign policy, domestic policy within the United States. Mel, jump in there. Go right ahead. You know about elections. We spoke at an election integrity event together.
Right. I've been at a lot of them. I actually think that your prescription for elections is the best prescription there is. I think it should be same day voting in that precinct. The ballots are counted where they're put in. And frankly, as it has always been before COVID, if you need a mail-in ballot, it's called, absentee ballot. You apply for that and you send in your information and all that. Everything that was changed in COVID should have been reversed, not put into law. Now, I don't know if you guys saw this, but I just saw it today. Judicial Watch and America First Legal, they found that CISA, ran by Chris Krebs, that came out and said that it was the cleanest election ever in 2020. He also, at the same time, was working with the Aspen Institute and the Election Integrity Project, to shut down misinformation and disinformation about mail-in ballots. But it turns out CISA had an entire report that it turned into DHS about mail-in ballots being completely just corrupt to the core. There's so many problems. They have a whole list. Well, this email was just released today. So what I'm saying is that anything that was put in under the guise of COVID should be reversed. And that it's not just tells you everything you need to know. Again, I do not believe that either. I believe both sides are completely captured by the same people and that they are deciding who's going to win. When you look at the money, I had on this great guy today that has a book out called Control Oligarchs, following the money. And like I brought up Citizens United and some other things that have happened. By the time it gets to our votes, it's gone. It's gone. That's why I say all these different things need to go. But Pasta, what you were at, and that was a Patrick Byrne event, and there were a lot of people there, but left and right, center, independent, Democrat, everyone there. When you were presenting what your prescription was to fix it, agreed. The only people that don't agree are the people that will not give up power, and I believe those are the people that are paying for our politicians. If enough people around this country would actually read their own state constitutions, figure out how to do this, I mean, it would be a handful of people that could start the ball rolling. And here we are, 10 months out, and I don't see anyone trying to reverse the COVID changes. And then the ones that went into law should be challenged. And I don't see that happening. And that leads me to believe that, again, we are a captured nation and our government is not functioning as intended.
You can see that Donald Trump has now taken the lead. It has begun. Let's see how long this lasts, or if it swings on up, or if Nikki Haley stays in there with a lot of votes. Ron DeSantis still has got a decent little bit amount over there. It was really intriguing to me. I thought, and this is something we didn't talk about. Maybe, Matt, you can piggyback. If you want to talk a little bit about the election, you're more than welcome to. But for me, the most puzzling thing was Ron DeSantis not getting good numbers in New Hampshire. And it also shows you the power of the mainstream media, right? So the area in which Ron DeSantis could separate himself from Donald Trump was in the COVID protocols with his opposition to Anthony Fauci. But yet he wasn't able to campaign on that because in a primary, the mainstream media wasn't allowing him to talk about that. So he couldn't even separate himself in a state like New Hampshire, where they have on their license plate, live free or die, where you would think that because of Ron DeSantis being a governor in Florida and the freest state in the union during the COVID protocols, that he would have gotten a lot of play there. But instead, he was almost wiped aside. Your thoughts on that? And if you want to say anything on the elections, please do so. Matt Weinglass.
Absolutely. Now, look, Ron DeSantis, we know he was the establishment chosen candidate up until a point, and then they ditched him. Now it looks like it's Nikki Haley. Of course, he wasn't allowed to talk about COVID. That was the arrangement. You can do that in Florida. You can't do that on the national stage. Any establishment candidate that's chosen, they get told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. We've seen it every single time. And if I can go back to what Don was saying earlier about the 2004 election, I like citing that one myself because I actually worked on that election. I was working with the SCIU at the time. in Florida, we know exactly what was going on in Ohio. We know exactly what they told John Kerry to do that year. They told him to get out and concede Ohio. Ohio had the voting machine problem. They were privatized. They were owned by Bush and Cheney. We knew all of that. They told us that information before anyone else found out publicly. So again, this is a voting problems. We've had it in our system for years and years. We've been talking about these things forever. And it's the only thing that changed were two things. One that Melke said is the COVID policy changes have gone the wrong direction. And the other thing I'll point out that changed for the worse is in 2020, apparently they convinced all of the liberals, all of the Democrats, that we've never had a voting problem before. That's the thing I cannot wrap my head around.
Yeah.
I was there on the ground in 2004. I'm telling you, we've always talked in liberal circles about voting problems. We've been talking about it for years. That's why I went.
It was a
to
progressive
Florida.
issue at one point, and now it's, after 2020.
It doesn't make any sense to me. The memory problem, and I guess this is part of the cultish behavior. You can see we all get short-term memory. We have no memory of what happened in 2000.
Yeah. As long as our side is winning, then ignore it. And that's the problem, because with, this is what I was talking about with that Carol Quigley Tragedy and Hope book. He was like, because he's on the side of the globalists and the oligarch billionaires writing their kind of manifesto. And he said that the two parties should be only slightly different so that there's the illusion of choice. And frankly, that I think has come to a head. So many things happened during these last several years of transparency and the fighting of censorship and people not allowing themselves, like Pasta and Matt and me, to be silenced. And if they were shut down one place, we're jumping up somewhere else. And this has allowed a lot of independent thinking that was never allowed before. And frankly, the truth is, I often cite the 2000 election, Bush v. Gore, because I think they were on the same team. And I think that Gore got some kind of deal to walk away and become some kind of climate change billionaire. And at the same time, what was the message that came out of Bush v. Gore? That humans could not be trusted to count the votes, that they needed the machines. So everything forward has just been like, whatever's working for whatever side is winning is where they go. And this is with everything. This is why I say our country was captured when they killed JFK. And from that day forward, it's been one cover up after another to protect the people that were involved in that. And everything else from there on has been let's just keep the public dumb and distracted and not involved. And another war is coming. And, in a few weeks, they're going to start talking about Taiwan. I mean, this is what we're dealing with right now. So, that's why it's up to the people. And that the World Economic Forum and apparently the mainstream media, I think misinformation and disinformation and malinformation, the information that's not good for us and we shouldn't hear, but it's not necessarily untrue. That's why it's the biggest problem. And that's why shows like yours, Pasta, and Don, and Matt, and Kim, and me, and everyone else is so important right now, because this is where we'll find that we actually are much more on the same team of let's just get transparency and deal with the facts as they are once we get there. But until we're there, there's nothing.
I just want to point something out.
Just really quickly, Don, just want to tell everybody that Trump is now widened his lead by 4 points, but please go right ahead. Just so you know, the football mentality, it's primary night, baby. We got to report it. Go ahead, Don.
So they had to have that. They bought those 6 votes up in Franconia and Nacho, wherever the hell they were.
Yeah.
They had to have Nikki Haley ahead at the beginning. Right. So that's going to float her a lot further than it should, while she says, I'm in it for the long term. None of this stuff matters up front. You had these rules changes in those 6 states, the swing states of Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, and Arizona, that were done not by the state legislature as required in the U.S. Constitution, but by a variety of other mechanisms, including, for example, in Pennsylvania, where the legislature affirmatively voted against making the changes. The Attorney General gives an interpretive ruling. The Board of Elections issues some rules and regulations changes, on and on and on, or the governor executive order. The changes are made. They conduct an election in 2020 and another one in 2021 and another one in 2022 under those rules. Then the legislatures firm these rules up. But guess what? These are legislatures that are children of those rules changes.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So they want them. So they
Yeah,
don't
they
want
got
to
elected by those under those rule changes.
Listen, we talked about this when people go, oh my God, a judge won't touch this. They're throwing it out. Why would a judge want to invalidate a system that put him in power? That is something that people have to realize when this is going around. And that was the excuse. You hear the bumper sticker remarks from a lot of the Democrats. Oh, well, Trump had every single case thrown out. There's no proof. Well, we have a system that is not allowing the citizens to audit. We have a system where there's no chain of custody. We have a system where there's no transparency. We're on YouTube, so I want to be careful with this because this is a new channel and I want to get myself in hot water right off the bat, right?
I didn't tell you I'm in the algorithm.
Right, we got, I'm going to delete this live stream as soon as we are done. It is coming down, but that's what we have to deal with now because, I've been in the penalty box for quite some time for talking about these things, but it is a questions we need to ask, and it just seems like, it's one big team, right? You were saying this, Mel. It's not really A team versus B team. It's one big team because in the 2020 election, Joe Biden won the top of the ticket, but the Republicans got the coattails. How did that happen? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it only happens as if they're in and on it together, but still Fox News is still kind of Laura Ingraham. It's the Democrats, Mark Levin, the Democrats. Guys, they're just yeah.
And Bob, there's something I want to tell you because you guys don't follow.
First of all, I got to say goodbye first. Can I say goodbye first?
I got to get out of here. We're going to wrap up soon anyway.
Thank you guys.
Say goodbye.
I hope to see all of you again soon. And let's see what
Don,
happens.
where can we find your work, honey?
At let's see, at Don DeBar on Twitter, just like on the label there, and also on was it truthsocial.com? Don DeBar, the way it is on the left part of that sign at Facebook, and also at vk.com.
And if you pick me up at LaGuardia when we get to your house, I expect meatballs and Chianti on the regular. You got it, pal?
Bro. No problem.
All right, buddy.
Any of you
Say
guys
goodbye to Sammy
from New York, shout at me. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Mel, you had something to say there.
Yeah, I was going to say something about if you're not, I got kicked off of everything, as you know, but I'm on Twitter. I got a new account. It's small, but I get to, because you're small, you can see a lot more. But I have to tell you, one of the big things about Ron DeSantis that people should know and probably study going forward is Ron DeSantis's social media team was vile. They were so, you think Trump is bad? These people were so vicious and so mean and attacked all the time. This was a group of people. One of the girls, I know her name, but I won't say it, but his team. So when you say that they turned on him or whatever, I really think it was internal. A lot of people that loved Ron DeSantis, I'm telling you, as somebody who moved to Florida and my parents live here and they've lived here for 30 years. They love DeSantis, but a lot of people turned on DeSantis because of his chosen team and his people that were running his campaign. They just felt that especially his online media team, I think sunk his candidacy. Because I think right now, if they didn't, he would be doing a lot better. There's many reasons, but I just wanted to say that from somebody who probably wouldn't be following Trump or DeSantis followers, but I did, and it really. That's why now in this day and age, when you're picking your campaign people and your social media people and all of that, and you're going to have, 50 social media influencers out there, and half of them are like just disgustingly vicious and cruel. It really reflected bad. It turned me off to Ron DeSantis. His social media team made me not like him. And it's sad, but it's true. So I just
Ron DeSanctimonious. That name is retired. Says
but
Donald
Trump didn't do anything. It wasn't Trump that was hurting him. It was his own people, I believe.
The guy, to me, really doesn't have a lot of charisma, right? Like, you see him try to smile, and it's painful watching that. And the thing about it is that the one area I thought that where he could separate himself from Trump, he couldn't even campaign on. I don't know. I didn't pay too much close attention to that. Me personally, I have my beef with Donald Trump when it comes to Latin America. My solidarity work. I do a lot of work down in Latin America. And Ron DeSantis is worse than Donald Trump when it comes to Latin America. So for me, I was never, ever a big Ron DeSantis fan. Listen, I was appreciative that he listened to his new Surgeon General and he got
Yeah.
on the boat and he was like, all right, let's fix this over here. No lockdowns, no mandates. I think he did a great job there too as well. But once again, he had an uphill battle. But Matt, before we get to you, let's say goodbye to Mel K, because we are wrapping up this show. I've been on my feet over here. As you see, I'm standing right now. But Mel, let everybody know where they can find you. You've been doing some amazing work. I really love having you on. I love going on your shows. I think that you are everything that's needed moving forward when it comes to Americans, right? Like there's so many things I want to talk to you, but I want to save it for a different time because my mama said, don't ever give away for free what people will pay good money to see. And there's so many things I think we can talk about because you are really about building a bridge. You're not about team sports. You're about the human element. I think that's so important. There's so many things. We got a little taste of it today when we started talking about the border and foreign policy. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. But let everybody know where they can find you and how they can follow your work. And more importantly, how they can support the Mel K Show.
Thank you. That's so nice because we are a small operation, and like you know, I got kicked off of YouTube in what I call the original purge 3 years ago during COVID. I had too good of a relationship with Dr. Zelenko, God rest his soul, and YouTube did not like that. So I went over to Rumble early. So I have a live news show every single night at 7:30 Eastern with great guests that are way smarter than me from all over, like Pasta said, from all different places and all different backgrounds and thinking. And that is on Rumble, the Mel K Show. I am on all platforms with free speech. I am not on YouTube or Telegram. So if you're over there looking at me, that is not me, and don't go there. Go to Rumble and BitChute. And I am also, I did get kicked off X and never got back my channel, but I have restarted at Mel K Show, at Mel K Show. And I do air the show there as well. And the best place to go also is themelkshow.com. I have a free resource page, which I highly recommend. It has a lot of stuff, including all the WikiLeaks documents, all of the FBI D-class, CIA D-class, a lot of what I call opposition playbooks. Really worth your time to go to the melkshow.com resource page and look around and find your passion and get involved. We are going to change this country, but we have to take it personally and do it ourselves. That's my message.
That is Mel K, ladies and gentlemen. Go follow her. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We're doing the official launch next week, but it was so awesome that you can come on today so we can get a little couple. I like to say the fishing is good today. We can show some people that next week we're going to start the show. I asked you to be a contributor on the show. You said yes, and it's going to be great. So if you want to see more of Mel K, and look for me and Mel K to do some collaboration down the road. She's one of my favorite persons to work with. Mel K, the Mel K Show. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Mel
Nice
K.
meeting you, Matt. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Great meeting you, Mel. Okay.
Matt, oh my Lord. Quick look in, Matt. You can see over there the Trump campaign. They're getting ready to celebrate over there. They're hoping to have a big celebration. Right now, if you look at the numbers, you can see that Donald Trump has got a 7-point lead now, so he's starting to expand that as the numbers come in. I'm assuming that it will continue to grow. His lead will continue to get bigger, but that is that. What are your thoughts today? If Trump wins big, buddy, do you think it's all over?
Well, look, he's probably going to win big. That's probably going to happen. Now, is it all over? I don't actually think so, and here's why. The mathematical elimination of the establishment candidate is going to be that's the destination for Nikki Haley. She will stay in. Now, if I'm wrong, you know, I'll buy you a beer, Craig. But I'm telling you, they will make her hold on as long as humanly possible. Why is that? Because we are still living in real time in this banana republic where our current administration is going after his number one opponent and trying to find any reason to keep him off the ballot. That is still in play. Now, is that going to actually happen? Probably not, but they will do every single thing possible. So Nikki Haley is the backup. She is the fail-safe. She's got to stay in as long as possible so they can try and make that happen and make that a reality. But no, I think the reality is, though, yes, if Trump wins big today, it's going to be very, very difficult for her to catch him in any way, shape, or form. And we'll just be watching this slow rip of the Band-Aid from here on out. So that's what I'm thinking.
I think though, it's going to be so hard for her to stay regardless. I know what you're saying, that she is the establishment backup candidate just in case any of these lawsuits come through. If something should happen to Donald Trump uh, with his health or anything like that. But I think the pressure is going to be so much after tonight once these results do come through, which once again, you never know what tricks they have up their sleeve, the establishment. But if these results come in, it's going to be just so hard for her to stay in the race. We got about 4 minutes left of the show, Matt. Let's take a really quick look one more time right now. These are the results so far. You can see that Nikki Haley is trying to hold on. He's got about a 7.5-point lead. I also want to thank everybody for coming on in today, even the losers like propaganda. Thank you so much for coming in there and throwing your opinions around. I know you have several different accounts, but all those who are supporting the new show, we do appreciate it. Remember, you can find us here every Tuesday and Thursday. Pasta to go. It's the number 2 and pasta for that. And go check us out anytime you want. Matt, your final thoughts on tonight's race and what we have to look forward to, and anything you want to talk about as far as your show is concerned. The Homeless Left. I think the name is amazing, but please go right ahead.
Absolutely. And again, Craig, thank you for having me on with you and being on our show, The Homeless Left. I really feel aligned with you, and what you're doing is so inspiring here on your show, Pasta to Go. We love it here at The Homeless Left, and we want to continue to do what our, I guess what you would say, our mantra, the mantra of non-tribal approach. That's what Homeless Left is about. And I understand, and the people you had on the panel today, every one of us seem to agree that the best thing we can do is come together, form an alliance that's not based on a color of a party or somebody leading us in this kind of cult mentality. This is what we're doing, is we're building a populist alliance from the right, left, everywhere, and we're challenging the people in power. And we can do that through news when we report on things as well. And I think that's why our show exists. That's why I know you're doing what you're doing. And when I came on today, even I was looking at the panel, I was like, wow, this is incredible what you have built here. And I want to continue to emulate it. I'm very inspired by you, Craig, to continue doing what we're doing. And we're going to be doing another show on Thursday. We go every Thursdays on Rumble. That's our main channel. We try to get the YouTube thing going as well, but we have similar problems that you've heard from others, that we do have the strikes that's for some reason they go after the little guys, but we're going to try and push through that. But Rumble's where you can find us right now. The Homeless Left, every Thursday, 12 Pacific, we do a live, and we have so many more things we're going to be getting into in the coming weeks. But again, thanks for engaging with me, and I feel like we're there's power in numbers, power to the people.
Yeah. Well, it says, I support you, love you. Are you still going back to Maui? There's a chance that me and Matt might go back together. We've talked about this. It's up to us. We're not going to let this story die. And we're going to continue to get it out there and continue to report on what's going on in Maui, because we're not going to let those people down. Going and seeing those people in the housing struggle they're having right now, it's one of the scariest things. My second part of my documentary, Lahaina on Fire, Volume 2, The Aftermath. Remember, the first one we did, we were 30 days after the fire. The second one we did, we were 100 days after the fire. That should be coming out shortly. I'm going to talk to my editor, my camera guy, George. We love him. Want to send a shout out to him, but that's going to be coming out soon. So don't worry about it. Me and Matt are not going to let the story die. We have connections there. We've met contacts. We're going to continue to talk to them, continue to report it to you. One last look tonight before we get on out of here. The numbers we can see. It is now Donald Trump has 53.5%. Nikki Haley, it just went down 45.7%. So
over.
it's about 8%, a little bit less than 8%. I'm sure that number will grow to double digits within the next couple of hours. We'll see. We'll have to just stand on by and see what happens tomorrow. See if Nikki Haley continues to go forward or she suspends her campaign. That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. For Pasta Jardul and Mr. Matt Weinglass, guys, go check out his channel, The Homeless Left. I love the name. I love the guy. I am Pasta to Go. That is it for tonight, guys. We love you. We will see you soon. And thank you so much for watching. It is time for Pasta to Go.